Hello everyone, welcome to Writing Quest. My name is Brendan Pugh, and in today's writing tip, we are talking about how to start big and get small. Huzzah! All right, everyone. So today we're talking like I said in the beginning, we're talking about starting big and getting small. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about when you're outlining your story and when you're working on your story. As you know, if you've watched any of our previous videos, I have grown this series to be a very large number of books, which has obviously in the beginning caused me a lot of headaches of how do I keep track of this? Where do I start? What happens? As you can see, I don't even know how to put words to it because it's a lot, One book is a lot, and then when you add multiple in a series, it's just even more. So I want to share with you a few of the strategies and tips that I've been using to keep my stories outlined and to figure out where to start and all that kind of thing. So the very first thing for this is if we start big and we get small, what does that mean? Well, I went through, and if you've watched any of my stuff on Notion, especially some of the recent stuff, I kind of talk about this process. But the very first thing you should do is simply write the synopsis of your story. Write the book jacket. If you went into the bookstore, Barnes & Noble, wherever you're at, and you picked the book off the shelf, what would the dust jacket say? That was really crucial for me because it you don't have to get into any of the specifics, but you can write the story, essentially, in a couple of paragraphs. You just kind of write what the story is about. You even kind of plant in there, the hook and how it ends and, all that kind of stuff. So that would be the first step. Start with the synopsis of the book. And what I would do and what I have been doing is, since my book series is about 12 books, I'm going through and I'm writing the synopsis for every single story. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's helping me see the full picture without getting bogged down into the details of who is where and all that kind of stuff. The next thing is, after you've done the synopsis, you're going to go into writing the two things. There's two parts to this next thing, is the character arc for the story and the 3-act structure. Now, there's a lot of structures out there for writing. I prefer to use a 3-act structure. I've been watching a lot of Abby Emmons videos, which you should definitely check out if you're into the 3-act structure. She does a really great job of breaking things down, and so I've kind of adopted that for my books. The great thing about it is you can change it after you kind of put the main pieces in place. So I start with a 3-act structure. You write your hook, your inciting incident, and then you go through, you take the synopsis that you had, and then you break it up into the story beats of the 3-act structure. If you've watched my Notion videos, again, definitely double check, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as the different beats. So that basically takes your synopsis of the book and breaks it into these maybe 12 chunks of, this is now the story from start to end with a little more detail. If the whole 3-act structure is too much for you, you can even break it down. If I'm just doing the first act, I'm just figuring out what the first act is, then I'm just figuring out the middle, and then I'm just figuring out act 3. Breaking it down just into whatever chunks you need to get it done. Then we go into chapter outlining. So once you have the main 3-act structure, now you want to go through and say, okay, to get from my hook to my inciting incident, what steps and what scenes need to get me from point A to point B? And then you come up with those chapters. Maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, however many. Probably it's going to be less than 10, around 3 to 6. I think currently I have like 4 or 5 chapters figured out. And you're basically just going to come up with those ideas, the synopsis of the chapter. You're not figuring out what's in the chapter. You're not really figuring out any of that. You're simply just kind of figuring out what is like the main story beat that's going to get me from point A to point B. And then you do that between every single beat of the 3-act story structure. After that, you go into the actual chapter outline. So you have the idea for the chapter, you have the goal of the scene and what the main core of it is. Now you're going to go through and you're going to actually break that chapter up into like, what's the setup of the scene? How we build the tension? Where's the crossroads, the decision, and finally the outcome? There's going to be more about this in future videos. I'm breaking down each of those different story beats and how to think about them and all that stuff. Again, I would recommend checking out Abby Evans' YouTube channel. She really does a great job of breaking all this stuff down. I've learned a lot from her channel, so definitely check her out. And then the final piece of the puzzle is going from the chapter outline. You have this kind of grand scheme. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to block the scene. Like if I was in a theatrical play or a musical, you block the scene. And basically all you're doing is you're not writing the narrative. You're simply just saying, this character stands here, then they go here, then they talk to this person, and then that person shows up. This event happens. And you simply break it into just, this is how the scene progresses. You're not writing emotions, you're not writing narrative, you're not writing dialogue. You're simply just saying, this is how my character walks through the scene. Then you're ready to write. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Brendan, that seems like a whole lot of stuff to do up front. And it really is. But in my experience, what has happened to me? I wrote my first book just randomly. I had kind of an outline, I had an idea, I just came up with scenes on the fly. And when I got to the end, it was a total mess. It isn't even, I can't even edit it. I simply have to just rewrite it. And so while I suppose the benefit to me was that it showed me a bunch of ideas, and it was basically like a brainstorming session. It's like I have all these ideas of what I want to do, but it is not in any way, shape, or form like, it's not even a good first draft. It's just a mess. It's just a mess of stuff. So to me, that gave me a lot of anxiety. That gave me a lot of like, man, can I really do this? Can I actually write a book and do all this stuff? And that's where I've become much more of an outliner recently, especially in recent days. And as I realized too, as I broke out my story into so many different books, that I don't want to get into the middle or into the end of the series and have to retrofit stuff and retcon things and try to figure out how it works. I just don't want to do that. When I want this to be a super cohesive series where things from book 11 matter in book 1 and things from book 2 matter in book 6. And like everything in the story is super, super cohesive and every single word matters. That is my goal for the story. That is what I want to do. So I'm working on breaking down this process for me. So what that means is you start big and you get small. I'm starting with the synopsis, and then I'm just getting to where when I finally go to write, I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what I'm writing. I know exactly who needs to be in the series and in the scene, and the narrative comes out easier because I'm not trying to figure out where I'm going at the same time. I'm simply taking the scene breakdown that I have and turning it into narrative. So what that means is a lot of extra work up front, but ultimately I think it's going to pay off in not only writing faster narrative, but also a better story in the end. And that's what we're really all striving for, is writing the best story we possibly can. So I will put these steps in the description, and we're going to be probably doing more videos breaking down each part of that process a little more. I hope you learned something in this video and in this writing tip. Please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. It really helps us out, and we will see you next time on Writing Quest. Huzzah!